Yay Networks.
Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil Amuti, and I can't wait for you to hear all of the Great Girlfriend magic on today's show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and your paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Enjoy! Happy Wednesday, Great Girlfriends. I am so excited to be in the middle of summer. Oh my God, it feels like the best time of year ever. I always appreciate living in summer year-round in LA, even though it's been kind of gray and rainy from time to time. This year was kind of rugged, but super happy to be in the middle of summer, and I hope you are enjoying a fabulous time with your great girlfriends wherever they are. I am getting into a really good conversation, a juicy one today with great girlfriend guest Jemele Hill. Hey, Jemele.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I literally was at an event. Shout out to Cody Oliver, the founder of Black Love, co-founder of Black Love. And you were on this panel, and I've admired you from afar forever, have such a great respect for your voice in media, and just you as a Black woman. I just love everything about you. And this conversation just truly resonated with me because I felt like I got to see the sister side of you. Like you were just in sisterhood that day. There was no sports commentary. There was no Twitter controversial conversation. It was just a basking in sisterhood. And I really loved seeing you being so tender and so warm and so welcomed into sisterhood that day. So I wanted to just tell you that moment was an invitation for me to go, I wonder if Jemele wants to be on the Great Girlfriends. Let me tap her. And I thought you had left. I did. I DM'd you. I was like, oh my God, you left before I could grab you. And then I saw you and I was like, she's actually here. So I'm super happy to have you on. Are you okay if I read your bio? Or do you want to tell me who you are and how busy you are?
As long as you read the short version. Don't read the long one. Okay.
Well, listen, we got receipts and stamps on how amazing you are in your experience in your career, but this is really powerful. So Emmy Award winning journalist Jemele Hill is the co-founder of Lodge Freeway Media and a writer for The Atlantic. Hill is also the Webbly and NAACP award-winning host of the podcast Jemele Hill is Unbothered. Prior to joining The Atlantic, Hill co-anchored SportsCenter with Michael Smith. In 2018, the National Association of Black Journalists named Hill Journalist of the Year. Hill's empowering, unabashedly bold memoir, Uphill, was released on October 25th, 2022, and she is now 4 years married. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, married.
Yeah. Well, I think people are sometimes surprised when they meet me because my reputation, unfortunately, precedes me. So they find out I'm normal and also not quite as angry as they imagine me to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I think people believe that I walk around with a picket sign latched to my back. And I'm like, that's not really who I am in real life, just because I speak about certain issues that I feel like are important to our community, to our country, and our citizenry. That doesn't mean that I'm a super serious person. Most people who know me for real know that I'm actually quite the opposite.
And I mean, it's good to know that there's both sides, because it feels like, in media, specifically in social media, you have to defend yourself when you shouldn't. I think that it's important that you have a right to say what you feel, how you feel on your platform, and not have to war when you do so. Do you feel like you have to go to war sometimes?
Yeah, but sometimes war is necessary for progress. And I don't mind it. I guess I've been in this space for so long that it feels like a battle, but not necessarily against people. It feels like we're fighting for something much bigger and more important than that.
Yeah.
And I certainly am not the first person to be in this position. There were people who are in this position and accomplish far greater things than I ever would. And so it doesn't feel like it's a fight that I shouldn't be waging. Mm-hmm. So because it doesn't feel that way, then I guess being in the thick of it, I sometimes don't notice a lot of the chatter around me, or even how people are reacting, because people often ask me, like, well, how do you handle it when people get upset? I'm like, well, they just got to be mad. Like, I mean, that's the only thing I can tell them is, like, you just have to be angry and sit in that. And it's okay, but I'm going to keep moving forward.
Yeah. Have you always known that you had a voice that would be considered this bold and, unabashedly outspoken voice? Did you always know as a kid, or was this something that you developed as you learned more about the world and culture and what was missing?
So I never looked at myself as somebody who had a voice. And even now it's interesting phrase it and to characterize it that way, because I didn't think anything that I said was really that crazy, and I guess maybe because I'm on the inside of it, of course I wouldn't think that, but I don't think it's really crazy or controversial to say racism is bad. Like, is that really that controversial?
Right.
Or when it comes to us speaking about police brutality and state-sanctioned violence against Black folks, is it crazy to not want to be killed?
Right.
So when you boil down what I'm actually saying, I don't think it's that controversial. But yet, for some reason in this country, that when you are a proponent of Black life, when you're a proponent of Black liberation, that's considered controversial.
Right.
And the other part of it is just being Black and being a Black woman in particular. It's a political statement, you existing. And only here is that the case, right?
Right.
And so because of that, your existence is polarizing to people in this country. So it's like, no, I don't really say anything that I think is illogical or irrational or controversial. All I'm here for is for equity, for fairness, and liberation. That's it. And I don't think those are concepts that are too difficult to grasp. And I think the people who take issue with some of the things I say is because they take issue with Black existence.
Right.
Your problem ain't with me. Your problem is with God. So.
Your problem is with God. No, it's so true. It's so true. I think it's very interesting that people feel it necessary to try to deconstruct who you are in order to protect their norms and their traditions. So they feel like the solution to that is to tear you apart, right? And to come after you or to try to polarize you and also try to mute you or silence you in some ways. And, like you said, being a Black woman in America, you are automatically positioned to have these conversations and to say the difficult things. But oftentimes people find that they don't feel equipped to go out there. How have you equipped yourself emotionally to stand in the spaces that you're standing in and represent some of the very simple human rights that you're speaking of? They're Black rights, human rights that you're speaking of, with expectation that people deserve them and not be torn down.
Well, sometimes you wind up getting prepared for things and you don't even know the battle you're going to be fighting until it happens.
Yeah.
And so my whole life is essentially, it was, maybe test isn't the right word, but my whole life was in preparation for this. And I had no idea that was the case.
Okay.
And so if you read my memoir, Uphill, I talk a lot about how I grew up. I grew up in the city of Detroit. As I tell people, I grew up in the real hood, not the rap hood. And, I had parents who are recovering addicts. My mother and I were on and off welfare growing up. And so I experienced a lot of childhood trauma.
Yeah.
I saw my mother experience a lot of trauma via, she's a rape survivor, a sexual abuse survivor. And so seeing that and going through all of that I did growing up in Detroit, it prepared me for this. And so every time something happens, some controversy, some campaign to try to come after me, the reason I think I'm able to have the perspective that I have about them and not really be, it bothers me just in the sense of that I feel like those people don't have a right to do that necessarily, especially the way they do it. Disagreement is totally fine. But, sometimes these campaigns and things, they get rather personal. And so what I always think about, and even when I had that particular controversy with the former president of the United States, is what I think about is that this is not even something that would rank in the top 20 worst things that I've seen or experienced in my life. It wouldn't even get there.
That's good.
And so that's why some of that stuff doesn't bother me, because I lived 3 lives before I even got to this point. All right. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Somebody wakes up and is upset at me, and not to make light of it, but I was like, when you've seen your mother go through a drug addiction, I don't care what you said. Like, I've seen the worst. All right. Like, you hollering at me on Twitter in all caps, I don't care about that. Because I've seen much, much worse than that. That's not even the worst thing you can say to me, and certainly not the worst thing that you can do to me. So that's why I think I did go through what I did, because if I didn't, I think my armor would be a lot thinner.
Absolutely.
So, through lived experience, through hardships and traumas, triumphs, all of those things, they prepared me for the moments, the turning points that I faced in my career and life later on, around like kind of in this stage.
Oh, that's so good. So many times you think those things don't equip you. A lot of people walk into, and you'll hear conversations, I even hear it in the Great Girlfriend community, women feeling ill-equipped because of their experience and questioning whether or not they have the value or the quality of voice that they need to stand up in boardrooms or, for their children or any area of their life, just to have advocacy in their being. But I'm hearing you say that experience is what built you and established you, gave you the muscle that you needed.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I had to learn. And there were, when you're younger, you really have to be strategic about the battles that you pick. I'm not saying that you don't when you're older, but there are battles I would never even attempt to pick in my 20s. Yeah. And now I'm just like, I choose violence every time. But that comes with age and experience, and also the leverage of being pretty much self-employed, right? And so, as I commonly say, it's like I work with people now, not for people,
right?
And so when you reach that point, then you can cut some folks out,
right?
And so I think it just comes in stages. So all those women, because I do get commonly asked that, is like, oh, how do I stand up for myself more? Or how do I do that? I was like, you don't have to do it every single time.
Yeah.
And advocacy and how you fight for yourself takes many different forms. But when you do pick that fight, make sure that you have the support, you have the leverage, you have the political capital. Because we know what it's like inside of corporate America. And you have to make sure that you have surrounded yourself before you go after somebody, so that if it goes the other direction, that you will have a protected landing, or you don't care about
whether or not
what the result is. Yes.
Right.
So because when people have asked me like, oh, what if you lost your job immediately after you sort of took on the president? I just would have lost it. Yeah. Like, I mean, I know that sounds
for that.
Right. I was ready for that to be a consequence.
Yep.
And when I sent those tweets about him, I didn't know that would be a consequence or was a possibility. But as it became more real that this is something that could possibly happen, I had made up in my mind, I'm not apologizing, and it is what it is.
Right.
And so if you have that mentality, then that's different. And so, because sometimes the people who win fights are the people who are okay with being hit. See, a lot of people lose fights because they don't want to get hit.
Yes.
See, if you go in there like, you punch me in the jaw, I just get hit in the jaw, that's a different type of person.
That's the worst that happened to me.
Right. I'm good. You don't ever want to be in a fight with somebody who okay with being hit, because they will outlast you. Like they not ducking. So they're like, yep, I'm gonna walk right into this punch and I'm firing back. It's just what it is.
I love that. One of my homegirls says all the time, she's like, I always have my exit speeches ready. She's always prepared for the fact that it might be her last one.
Let me go to drafts. Here it is.
This is my last one. This is what was said for the record. This is how I'm exiting the building.
My last email. Tell you what I got for you.
And then she's like, they never fire me. They actually keep promoting me. I said, well, good for you. But she's like, I'm always ready to advocate to the fullest extent of possibility. I'm never afraid of walking away, because what I'm not going to do is be beholden to these people and lose everything that I am to a job or to a position or to a check, all those things. And so I love that, because it reminds me, I think so many times women will weigh their voice against someone else's. They wait for someone else. And if Jemele didn't say it, then it's not meant to be said. So I'm just going to fall back because it wasn't the time. And I think there's a space for every single one of us to utilize our voice, to be the advocate in the room, to represent whatever it is we're passionate about. But how did you really get laser focused on your passion to know when it's time for Jemele to speak and when it's time for Sybil to speak, or when it's time for Casey, producer, to speak? How did you learn that skill?
Well, I think what I learned, though, is that it takes many different forms.
Yeah.
Because you could change somebody's life by just suggesting them for a higher level assignment or a job.
Absolutely.
Right? Just bringing their name up. So sometimes the advocacy doesn't always have to take the form of being upfront, in your face. Like, sometimes it does require softer forms, and you could get a lot of things accomplished. I think for me, a real turning point was probably a lot of the things I experienced at ESPN, because the television industry is very tough on women, and it's really tough on Black women. And so some of those battles I had to fight along the way to get to a SportsCenter really were very eye-opening, and it really taught me how to sort of sharpen my knife, so to speak. And once, because a lot of us, or in our community, we often have this struggle about what's the best approach. Is it from the inside or from the outside?
Yeah.
I think you need both.
Yes.
You need pressure from within and from without.
Yes.
Right? And everybody, whether you're inside or outside, you need to understand what the assignment is.
Right.
And so you see a lot of people, a lot of us, we are striving and we're working and we're climbing because we're hoping to get to that place of, okay, when I get in the position, I'm going to shake up things, I'm going to change everything. And what happens is the place changes you. And that's why I tell young people, know who you are before you walk through the door. I don't care what door it is, because if you lose that sense of yourself, that place will change you. And so I see so many of us that get changed by the elevation, we get changed by the check, we get changed by other things. So suddenly that mission of holding the door open or shaking up the room becomes less important. Once we got to the point where we got to SportsCenter, which is ESPN's baby, it is the legacy brand of the company.
Right.
We were like, you know what? We didn't even expect to be here. We gonna fool out. We didn't expect to be here. Right? And because both Mike and I had that mentality of we'll walk away from this at any moment before we compromise who we are. That's why we had the blackest production staff of any SportsCenter that was there and on air at the time.
Wow.
We intentionally made sure that we had Black producers, a Black director, Black folks on our show because we're the Black talent.
Yeah.
And when you're the talent and when your face is on the show, you have a lot of power. And we were going to swing that hammer. And so understanding how much leverage can really supplement, if not boost your advocacy. Once I understood and saw how the white folks was doing it, I was like, I'm gonna do that same thing. Because I think some of us, what happens is when we get to those positions, we get afraid like, oh, if I hire too many Black people, they gonna say something. Did they say something when they hired all them white people? All right then.
Right.
What we scared of? What did I work so hard for? If not to do this?
Right.
So if we looking from the face of it, like a Tyler Perry show, that's just what it is.
That's what it is.
Right? And I'm not
good.
apologizing. Right. I'm not.
Right.
So it was ESPN, of the many lessons I learned it taught me how to step into power and to use it to my advantage when I had it.
Yeah.
As one of my former colleagues told me a long time ago, a white guy, and this was great advice. He said, sometimes you the hammer and sometimes you the nail, but when you're the hammer, you better swing that so-and-so.
That's good.
And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm in a position to affect some things, I am going to use that to the fullest.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of how I approach stepping into this new phase of my career, because I never expected to be a business owner at this phase in my career. That was not something that I wanted to do.
Really?
That was not a testimony I saw for myself at all.
Yeah.
I'm a journalist. We hate math. Are you kidding me? I don't want to be in charge of people. Like that was never something I wanted to, but I saw in the spaces I stepped in now that it was necessary because we create the culture and then we give it away. We some of it is that we don't realize how precious it is. And some of it is just we've been conditioned to believe. We all have. I certainly was. So I'm not saying that I'm above this conditioning. We've been conditioned to believe that once we get to a certain place and once we refine a certain product and we make it hot, that we got to give it to somebody else in order to get to the next step. And I was like, maybe we don't.
Right.
Or, maybe there are different ways in which we can still maintain our cultural identity and also get the bag. So those are sort of, the battles that I think about now, but I was meant to be in this particular phase. And I think the things that I went through my last 5 years at ESPN kind of prepared me for it. So that's why I say you're being in this moment, you're being prepared for things and for battles you're about to face 5-10 years from now that you don't even know. And so it's important that even in the quote unquote failures, which I don't necessarily believe in those, there is something larger and more important at work there. And so you have to kind of keep telling yourself that even if you feel like you're experiencing a setback.
That's so good. Look, let me stop and slow clap. What do you fear?
Well, I mean, I'm just, the first thing that comes to mind is like, I fear that, when I leave this place, that the first sentence in my obituary is going to have Donald Trump's name, and I just can't have that. I just can't have that.
Listen, to whomever
right.
is responsible.
I told all
for
my
the
closest
estate.
friends, I was like, listen, I'm coming back. We'll haunt y'all. Make sure that is not in my obit.
It cannot, will not, won't not. It can't be. Is not happening.
It can't be. And not, I mean, because then that means that was the most significant thing I did to people.
And that's not. No.
Can't be that.
No.
So I fear that more than anything, is that I won't leave a big enough imprint or impact in what I did to where people still see that as my defining moment. Nah, not gonna happen.
I love that. I love that because a lot of people will lean into the idea that the most infamous moment is the one that has the most value. And you recognize that moment was just a little speck, a granular molecule in the larger cell life of who you are and your identity. That's so good.
Yeah, no, I don't want it to be. And so, everything I'm doing now and working on now and trying to put together is about, making sure that the larger goals that I have in mind, some of which sort of materialize without me knowing, that those get accomplished, or that I really dedicate myself to those, as opposed to trying to, I'm not defined by this one incident. I realized it was big news, and I'm not, I understand that it actually put me in this position in many regards, but that can't be the defining part of my life.
So, okay, how do you, Jemele, learn to separate, or is there a separation between Jemele the journalist, Jemele the businesswoman, Jemele the friend, Jemele the daughter, Jemele the wife? Because we have so many facets as women, and a lot of times we enter one room, that requires a certain amount of strength, and then we want to get into another room, and then we don't need our strength. We need the tenderness there, and we need the warmth there. So how do you unpackage, repackage, fold it up, mold it up,
now you got,
so that you can be your full self?
Yeah, now you got people thinking I'm Sybil with like 25 personalities, but
but you have so many facets, right? And I think it's okay for us to have these different facets.
I do, and especially because Black women in particular, we, people assume because we handle our business, and because I think we stay in the default mode of get it done.
Yep.
Right? Just get it done. Let's do it. You want any problem to be fixed, call a Black woman.
Yes,
it's going to be fixed.
And
it's done. It's going to be fixed in like 22.5 seconds.
Right.
That's how it is. So people assume that we're that person in every facet of our life.
Right.
And sometimes they weaponize it against us.
Right.
To say like, oh, this is why so many of y'all single and this and that, because you don't know how to submit and all that. I'm like, all right, we just not even going to go there. But so yes, I'm the same person everywhere, but how I execute is different. Yeah. Right. And so, because like there's let's just take my marriage, for example. There's a certain type of marriage that I desire to have. And, of course, as it should be, my husband's going to see a much different side of me.
Yeah.
He's going to see me at my weakest. He's going to see the worst parts of me. He's going to see all and has seen bits and pieces of these things that are not necessarily transferable into the other things that I do. Now, even being in quote unquote boss mode, I'm never unreasonable. I'm not somebody. I do have type A instincts. That is, I can't.
I love that type A instincts.
I have type A instincts. I don't think I'm fully type A because I am a pretty laid back person, but I'm type A enough.
Right.
Okay?
When it matters, maybe.
When it matters. And even just in constructing certain things, like I am that way. But yeah, those are decidedly different people, because it was important to me that not only that I have a certain kind of marriage, but also that I show up for my husband in a certain way. And I think about something my yoga instructor told me years ago, which was give me 100% of your 10%. If you got just 10% left, give me 100% of that.
That's good.
And so what I try to guard against more than anything is letting those other components, the media personality, the business owner, not let that sap so much of me that I can't show up for my marriage, right? And I think that's what most working women have to struggle with, right? It's like, okay,
hello,
you know what I'm saying? We all struggle with that because we know we have 2,200 things we have to get done. But at the same time, I don't want those things to be so overwhelming that I can't show up in other areas, even though my husband is like, I got you, like, don't worry about it. It's like, no, I got to show up in a certain way.
That's right.
for this to work. And so I had to learn to set certain boundaries. And when people ask me about work-life balance, I was like, what's that? Oh, that's cute. Y'all think that's a thing. It's not.
It's just a conversation that people like to have. That
Work-life
don't have
balance.
Anything to talk about.
Even when I was single, I didn't have that. I was like, never in my life have I had work-life balance. It's never going to be 50-50. It's not going to happen. I know. I'm sorry. I broke some news and broke some hearts by saying that.
Like, they don't know what they're talking about.
No.
17 years and 4 years in, it's not happening.
It's not happening. It is not going to happen. That's why I said I think about 100% or your 10%.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, there are specific times a year that I have blocked off. Don't bother me. Don't call me. I mean, literally, the world would have to be on fire in front of me,
right,
for me to, take my time away. Because my husband's birthday and my birthday are built-in vacation times, no matter what.
Yeah,
right. And so when those two times happen, my staff, they know. Don't bother. Yeah. Like it's got to be something. Yeah. Even my girls, I'm like, you better be calling me from. You better be kidnapped. And even then, I might be like, well, how long have you been there? Are they feeding you?
How long have you been there?
You getting water? Right, you all right? Otherwise, you just in a closet. You good.
You could have lasted.
I'll be there in about 5 days. I got you. Right. So it's because I had to do that.
Yes.
And even I told my husband, because sometimes speaking engagements will come up, and if I feel like they're interfering with something that we have designated, like, we're going to do this, and something comes up, I've learned to tell him, I'm not going to tell you how much money they offer me, because if I do, then he's going to be like, what? Right, you better go. I'm like, no, I'm not, I understand that you have to take advantage of these opportunities, and I get all that, but you'll always find yourself saying yes. You'll always find I don't want to get in a habit of always rationalizing why I shouldn't say no. Right. Because as the wonderful Lena Waithe told me once, no is a complete sentence.
It's a whole sentence.
Right. And she put some cuss words in it. I just gave you the clean version. But yes.
Somebody should write the book No and just open it.
Right. It should be no period. That should be the title.
That's it.
That's it. That's all you need. And so I had to get out of that. It's like understanding what my bandwidth is, understanding when to say no, because we stretch ourselves so thin.
Trying to prove so much, trying to do so much, trying to be so much, trying to affirm so much, and it's not worth it.
It's not. The worst feeling that I have, and it just, it will sit in my spirit so badly, is when I agree to do something, and then when that happens, I'm thinking, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Why? Why am I?
And the whole time you sitting there like,
right, and I'm angry at. I'm cussing myself out on the inside.
Like, remind me to never do this again.
Never do this again. And so
all the time.
With certain things that I'm asked to do, I can sense that moment is going to come. I'll be like, nope, because I know if I agree to do this and I have to do it, I'm going to choke somebody.
Yep.
And the only person I could choke is me.
Yep.
Because I was the one.
Your husband don't want to hear you complain about it.
No.
He don't want to hear you talk about it.
No, he's like, you agree. I told you. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I am doing a better job of the boundaries, right? Good. Of just being able to say like, okay. So there are distinct differences with all of those types that you mentioned, like, but all of it is still me. It's not like I'm a different person when I'm on television or a different person when I'm writing a column. Like all of this is me. It's just you're getting the more pronounced version of whatever role that I'm playing in the moment or the role that I have to fit into in that moment. So I make sure to try to, in many ways, keep those separate, right? Because when me and my husband are at home and we're watching one of our shows, it's like I don't want to play media commentator at home, right? It's like I want to, sort of not think about those things and just be relaxed in our space. And so I think it's important for me to keep those distinctions very present.
There's so many times I hear women talk about this, and great girlfriends are listening going, they feel like they have to show up as sometimes the worst version of themselves when they have to, fight a conflict at work, or they feel like they have to put on an act to be a better mother or be a better wife. They don't feel like they can fully be authentic. And what you said is so valuable. You execute differently. It's still you. Like, your character kit is still the same. You're still pulling from the same assortment of attributes. The persona is the same, but the way you execute it is differently. So I think it's important for women to recognize the need for, one, reading the room, reading the environment, and knowing what part of you is most essential in that environment. Yeah, right?
I mean, I think you're right. And what most, when we go through a situation or inevitably face an obstacle, like, you don't wish for the business person. Like, you wish for the real person of, like, who you are. And so, I mean, lately, like, one of the conversations I've been having with myself lately is about how I am showing up in friendships, because I do feel like there are areas where I have not shown up in the way that I need to, because I am expending so much energy and bandwidth in other areas, and those areas are important.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to cultivate and nurture my friendships in the same way that, it's a hierarchy, of course, but with the same intentionality that I do my marriage. Because even though we sort of are conditioned to think that marriage is supposed to replace your friendships, that's really not how it should be.
Lies.
Those are lies. Like, that's not the case.
Don't ever, never, ever.
No, it can't do that.
No.
And so I want to make sure that I'm able to show up for my friends in a way that nurtures our relationship, because I have a tendency to let that slack off because of everything else.
Yeah.
That everything else is always going to be an issue. So how can I either maybe diminish some of the everything else, or at least balance it a little bit more so that the everything else doesn't take everything out of me?
My last guest was talking about that. She was saying in friendship, you show up as a friend that you want to be or experience, and that's part of your execution right now, is figuring out how do you learn that. That self-awareness is big, though, because a lot of people miss this moment right here where it's like, I know in my being that I need to give my friendships more of the value, the equity that they're due.
Yeah.
Because you are the sum total of that experience. And at the end of the day, we want to look into them and see that we invested and got a return on it. We don't want to go, where are my friends? And we were never like,
right.
Well, your friends floated onto the relationships where they were getting more of a return.
Yeah.
People want a return,
that
right?
part.
Yeah. What do you think your friends need from you?
Well, I do think I could do a much better job of sort of checking in with them and taking their temperature to make sure everything is okay. Because I think sometimes I tend to think that they're sort of, that they're on autopilot. And, not necessarily. Yeah.
I'm guilty.
Yeah, I know. I
can say I do the same.
I do it. I do
Y'all
it.
good, right?
Like, right. Exactly. That's not even a question. You're like making a statement. You're like, you good, right? Yep. You good. And so I want to be much better at doing that and keeping in touch with people and making sure that, hey, we all still get together and spend time, even though, we have a few of us who are, married now, and we're going through different, personal changes. And especially because there's going to come a point where you start, not to be morbid, where you start losing your friends. And so you don't want to look at back at the moments that you could have had with them, or look back at the moments like, man, I should have checked in more. Anybody that is close to me, if something happens, I do not want to have that conversation with myself like, why didn't you call that time? Or why didn't you check in? They were on your mind. Why didn't you do it?
Right.
So, my next challenge, I'm really going to challenge myself over the next 6 months to really do a much better job. I don't know if it'll be a great job, a much better job of checking in, of being more nurturing. I have to say nurturing has never come naturally to me necessarily. That's why I kill all the plants that I have, and I don't. It's like not a natural nurture, man. The plant's dead before they don't even cactus. Know. I know. It's like poor plants.
This is the perfect place for you to get like one of those plants that you water once a year. I don't know what they call, because mine died too. But I'm just saying there are such plants. They actually have. I don't want to say a brand, but they have a brand. There's a brand of plants that you pour the water and it waters itself over time. It's amazing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I need that plant.
Yes,
because we have one plant, our plant berry, that my husband is solely taking care of, and so. He named him after former President Barack Obama. He calls him Barry. And he is in charge of this plant because we had several plants. They all died, and part of it was my own neglect because I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to water the plant.
Well, you travel and you're like, ooh.
Because you travel, and I just, you know, that's probably why for a long time I had a cat. Because cats are very self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Right? Like dogs, too much attention.
Yeah.
I love them, but they're needy.
But a cat is good.
A cat is good. Yeah. And I love anything that has the audacity that you feed it and they still look at you with disdain. It's something about that I find to be incredibly powerful and audacious.
Right.
Like, even though it's hateful, I respect it. Yeah. I respect it.
I always feel like with cats, you're like paying the bills for them.
I know.
Because you live in their home.
Correct.
Like it's not.
After a while, they look at you like you trespassing. Yeah. Like, what are you doing here? Mad at you because you home.
Right.
You just like, I thought I lived here.
I didn't know you'd be here.
Right. Sorry. Exactly.
I was going to watch my show.
I do. I respect the boldness of cats. And so, but, you know, I'd say all that to say is like, I mean, I want to show up for my friends more in a nurturing way. I want to show up making sure that I check in on them and, you know, just reiterating that they know they can come to me, which they do. I mean, I feel like they do if they really need something. And, you know, because I'd recently had a great conversation with somebody who's very popular online, Dr. Joy Bradford.
Yes, her too.
Yes,
love her.
I love Dr. Joy, and so she was recently a guest on my podcast, and that'll air next because she has a book that's coming out. Yeah, Sisterhood Heals.
Yep.
I read the book. I got an advanced copy. It's great. I highly recommend.
I was highlighting.
Yep. I know highlighting. I was taking notes. I was like, oh my goodness, and so we had a great conversation.
Yeah,
and you know, one of the things that she talked about in terms of the dynamics of a sister circle and the power of having a sister circle is we have to get into the practice of telling our friends when we need things.
Yeah.
Of asking our friends for things because Black women, like, that's just not a chip most of us have.
Nope.
We don't know how to ask for help.
Like, can't you see my struggle?
Right.
Like, but you got on bronzer, lip gloss.
Right. You looking fabulous out here.
Yeah.
Right. I don't see, because we're good at that too,
we
right?
We mask it, and then we want people to see it. And it's like, wait, what do you want?
But we mask it, and even if we want people to see it, a lot of times we don't, which is why we're masking it.
Right.
Like, we falling apart on the inside.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're hoping that somebody will help, but no, they can't. They don't know.
No. I mean, and so I want to make sure I do a more intentional job of like peeling behind, you know, the great makeup jobs and all of the things,
like you good,
the fabulousness of my friends, and be like, are you good, or are you just saying you good?
Yeah.
Or even myself practicing the habit of asking my friends for something when I need help.
Yeah.
And
it's tough.
That's hard.
It is because you feel like you got it, and you do got it, but you got it even better when you have people around you that can support you and help you keep and maintain the things you want to have.
You got it at an expense.
Just recently, last year actually, I was thinking about some of my friendships and my married friends, and I was like, we don't talk about like how we're doing as wives. We don't even talk about that.
Listen, okay, so that is such a word.
How do you feel as a wife? Like, are you doing okay as a wife? Like, how is that? Like, we don't talk about. I realized we never talk about it, and then it just opened up. I was like, crap, we need to talk about this because we don't talk about it. You just assume that it's okay. But I started asking, like, how's your marriage going?
Another part of it is that, you know, you, especially as a married woman, because we've all been through. We understand that you can't share everything with everybody, right? And there's a protection that you put around your marriage, right?
That's right.
Like everybody don't need to know what's going on.
Versus the world.
Correct.
And that's how we need to get.
And then I think as Black people, we all been conditioned about, you know, keeping the business in the house. Anything that happened in his house happens in his house. Yeah, my mama cussed me out about that one time, and I never did it again. I was like, okay, anything that happened in this house ain't got nothing to do with it.
That's our business.
That's our business, right? Yep. So you come up with that mentality. But as you said, you asking that question, there should be a trust and a comfort and a safety in friendships.
Right.
In the ones that are really like, you know, your ride or dies, your day ones, whatever category you wanna call it, where you can talk about these things.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm so glad you asked them that, and it opened it up.
Oh my gosh, I need to do better because I want us to all have the marriages we want. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be that any one of my friends comes up divorcing and I was available and I didn't support her, I didn't help talk her off the ledge or whatever. Or if it was time that I didn't let her know, okay, I'm with you on this. You know what I mean? Like, if it is a divorce-worthy situation that I wasn't like, I'm gonna walk with you. Instead, I'm just back here chilling. So I just started to ask, like, how's your marriage? Like, how are you feeling as a mom? How are you feeling at work? I started getting more specific about questions instead of being like, what's up? You know, you good? What's going on? Because people hide behind that.
Yeah, no, that's a good word and a good nugget that I'll definitely walk away with.
It'll change your text thread. I'm telling you. It's like, oh, we need a call.
We don't need to put this all in writing.
We need a call.
And to your point, like, you know, my husband, a close friend of his, you know, is going through, you know, some marital problems. And he said the same thing. He's like, I had no idea anything was wrong.
Right.
And he's like, in part because I didn't ask. He said, I just saw the face of it and just assumed everything is okay. And not just women. I'm with you. Like, men need to talk about this. They need to check in with each other and say, like, yeah, is your marriage going good? Like, are you okay?
Right. And your real friends won't find it invasive. They'll be like, oh, girl, just last week, or this is good, or that's good. How's yours? Like, it opens a door. The people that aren't that close, you know, you'll know. But I would never I know who to ask that question to.
Correct.
And I'm hoping it spreads. Like, you go ask 6 people, whoever, you go check in, but everybody just doing these check-ins because it's falling. Like, the mental health crisis is happening. We're in the middle of it. It's around us. It's a part of us. 2 friends are dealing with depression. We don't know. It can't be that it's all outside and that it's not in our inner circles. These things are happening right in our circles. So that's part of friendship, is just being like, how is your mind right now?
Right.
You know, like,
I mean, if you want to just, you know, just playing a numbers game, and again, as a journalist, that's not my strong suit. But if it's, you know, if going with the statistic that half of all marriages end in divorce, that means half of your friends right now are in trouble. Right.
They're on the brink.
They're on the brink.
Like, you don't see it, and maybe they don't even see it, but the check-in will help.
I love that. That's strong advice.
Girl, we gonna do that.
Yeah, I know. Right. As soon as we done, I'm gonna be like, girl, is your marriage okay? Let me tell you. Right. Exactly. I am gonna do that.
Oh my God, I love that. Okay, so what's next for you? Because the book came out last year.
Yep.
Love it.
Thank you.
Love how candid, transparent, honest, open, healing the book is for anyone who's reading, who needs to understand that it's safe to be honest.
It is. And besides, I when I wrote it, they don't usually have sequels to memoirs.
They don't, yeah.
So I felt the least my story deserved was me telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right? And so I wanted to lay it all out there and just say, hey, you know, to use a sports cliche, I did not want to leave any plays on the field. Mm-hmm. And because you know, I was in the advantageous and the very fortunate and blessed position to be able to create and craft my own narrative. Mm-hmm. So I had to make sure that I did that in a way that was true to the story, that honored the story, and the experiences that I lived. So yeah, it was. I've always wanted to be an author. I never saw myself writing a memoir because I frankly didn't want to write about myself. You know, I want to write fiction, and so I'm hoping that'll be my next project, is writing a fiction novel. So yeah, like I was very proud of that, and really happy. The paperback version comes out in October, so there'll be another book tour, so that'll be great.
Is there an audiobook?
There is. I did, and I did
you
it.
Do it?
I did my own audiobook.
I love that.
Yeah,
okay.
It probably wasn't great that I was listening to Viola Davis's audiobook at the same time, which is the best audiobook I've ever heard. She won a Grammy for it, as she should have. Like, it's insane.
It's so good. Her book was amazing, and then
story.
I did the audio. I was like, oh my God.
I know. Like, I did the audio. I didn't read the book. I just did the audio because I was thinking to myself, knowing what a strong actor she is, and her voice is amazing. I was like, I bet this audiobook is pretty good. And it was like, oh,
it's killing.
It is unbelievable. And if they don't make her her story should be a movie.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly, like it should be it should be a biopic for sure.
Yep.
Hers was good. Will Smith's was good.
Oh, it was really good.
His audiobook was really, really good.
So good.
Very well produced.
I was going to say the production value was amazing. The quality, the storytelling, the sound, the experience was just I didn't expect less.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be that level.
Yeah.
I didn't understand, but I didn't know, like with Viola, I felt it in my bones.
Yeah. That
like,
it shifts you.
Oh,
that's a different.
It was gripping.
I thought I grew up poor. She on a different level. I was like, I don't know that poverty.
I mean, Viola poor was like a whole other level of, first of all, Rhode Island. I was like, who grows up in Rhode Island black? That was different for me. But then barefoot, like bedwetting and all the things as a teenager. And
like no running water poor.
Yeah.
Like, as you said.
In the city.
In the city, yeah.
It was and
no
to
heat.
See her today.
And to see her today.
It all equipped her.
It did.
All equipped her.
See?
Everything you said.
See, all right, that's a moment. Yep, that is true.
It equipped her.
It equipped her. That's why every time she speaks, it's like you have to stop and listen to every word she says.
Yeah.
But you're right. It equipped her for this particular life that she was supposed to live. But yes, I did my audiobook. And yeah, excited about the paperwork. You asked me about things that I have coming up next. I'm also executive producing Colin Kaepernick's documentary, which is directed by Spike Lee.
Awesome.
So we've all been working together, and believe that'll be coming out this fall.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so, yeah, I mean, and I've never executive produced a thing in my life.
This is amazing.
But this is a story, obviously, that I'm, because Colin and I, we definitely wage different battles publicly, but our stories are like very intertwined, because he started protesting in 2016. I went through my issues in 2017, and he was a very vocal advocate of mine, and we didn't even know each other like that.
Wow.
Yeah, we had just met each other like in passing at an event.
Yeah.
And that was it. And his integrity is really amazing. Like, he's an amazing person, and I can't wait for people to see this, because not only were a lot of people wrong, and should apologize to him for the way they tried to make him an enemy.
Yeah.
But he's just like he is a person that has like such high integrity, and I just respect him so much. Him and his partner Nessa, which they are incredible people. So very excited about that, and just have a lot of things at work production wise. Writing is always going to be my first love. So continuing to write for the Atlantic, because I do love the fact that I'm able to write about sports now in a different way. Writing about sports from the perspective of its intersections with race, culture, politics, gender.
Yeah,
right? Because that's
about time though. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what's happening. It's
right.
like I know that there's this thinking that sports and politics shouldn't mix. They've always mixed.
Completely mixed. Yeah,
always have.
Yeah.
And there's conversations you can have in sports about the same issues that we have in wider society that are different, because sports is actually one of the few things that we do together. We're very segregated. We don't worship together. Most of us don't eat with people outside of our circle or people that we know. But sports is the one thing that brings people together regardless of economic circumstances. I mean, the president of a bank and the dude that drives the bus could both be Laker fans.
That's right.
And they could be, there's a bond that forms because they are. And so because of that, through sports, you're able to have sometimes productive conversations about bigger issues. And you see in ways that sports leads the rest of society.
Facts.
Right?
Absolutely.
So Jackie Robinson integrated Major League Baseball in 1947. That was almost 20 years before we got the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
Right? So so I will always love doing that. Developing a comedy series with Gabrielle Union.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of different things, but there's still a lot of stuff that I want to do. I definitely am looking at some television possibilities where I'll return to the screen.
Oh
yeah. So
be on the lookout.
Yeah. So I'm 2023 is sort of my year of charting forward the next 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say 10, but I was like, 10 feels too long. I want to retire early. So the next 5 years, just figuring out what that looks like and what I really want to be truly invested in. But yeah, I mean, I've always, the heart of being a journalist is knowing how to tell stories. And so what I love is that in everything that I do, it's about how to tell a great story.
Yeah. That intersectionality is real. Whether or not people want to acknowledge it, it's there.
Yeah, I mean,
and a great storyteller will help it unfold for people.
Definitely,
yeah.
and we're able to have some, conversations. We're able to have a gun culture conversation because of what John Moran is going through, and so yeah, like we can have a conversation on mental health because Simone Biles said, you know what? I'm good on the Olympics.
Exactly.
Y'all done got enough of me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I love that sports constantly gives us these opportunities to have these conversations.
Yeah. I mean, Serena, maternal health, and now she's on baby number 2, and everybody's like, "We're covering you, Serena."
I know that's right.
We're praying for you because we want her to have a safe and a really warm and bountiful experience this time. You know what I mean? But it opens the door when athletes, Naomi Osaka, being able to say
Talk about mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, so I'm really, as other people should be, encouraged by how athletes are leading the way.
Yeah.
Black athletes are leading the way into these conversations.
Yeah. Oh, I can't keep you, but I can't thank you enough.
Well, this was delightful.
Thank you enough. I have had the best time. Great girlfriends. Listen, Jemele, you just came and gave it all. You gave it all.
I tried to, but I thank you for the opportunity, and I think it's wonderful that you have this platform. And one of the projects I created at Spotify was starting a podcast network for Black women, the Unbothered Network. We have a couple podcasts that are out now. One is called Sanctified, which is about how Black women worship. You saw me at the event at Cody's event.
The retreat.
Yes, Deborah Joy Winans, my good friend. She is a Sanctified podcast. She's one of the co-hosts along with LaVon Briggs, and they have had some some conversations.
Really?
Powerful. I highly recommend y'all check it out because like the last podcast they did was with Sarah Jakes Roberts, TD Jakes' daughter. Yeah. And so they have these, and they not shying away from the grit of it.
Yeah.
So they've had conversations about abortion, about what happens when you let the church into your marriage, like things that, deep down in them places we don't talk about.
That's right.
Right. That we need to talk about, about how our relationship with the church, because I think for Black women, it's changed so much.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of Black women who, while desiring and engaged in a spiritual relationship, don't know how to have one within a church because of some of the parameters and restrictions, and frankly, some of the misogyny that's in the church.
Come on.
And so they drag it all out into the surface. So I think it's really powerful. And then there's another podcast we have on the network called The Black Girl Bravado, which is dedicated to mental wellness, or as they call it, homegirl wellness.
Oh, I love that.
So,
I got 2 new lessons.
Yeah, Brittany and Germany, they are unbelievable, and they talk about it all: boundaries, dealing with unfair expectations, just so many different things that Black women experience, and they get to it in a real intimate way. So I think you all will enjoy that. But that's why I'm very encouraged when I see more of us having these platforms, because the podcast space is growing rapidly.
2020 was the boom.
Yes, it was because people was at home.
Serious. Everybody was like, I got a mic. I'm got something to say.
Yes.
And I love it. I do love it because I think the more conversations that we have, we get comfortable having conversation. You know what I mean? We get accustomed to having a space where conversation is supported. It's where we are able to have these vulnerable spaces that we never really opened before. We thought it was for certain people to have. It's for everyone to have.
And Black women, we need to see ourselves in this space.
Absolutely.
So I'm very thankful and grateful that somebody like you is in this space so that we can see ourselves and more importantly, like you said, open up and have those conversations.
Yes. Okay, where can they follow you, keep up with all the things going on?
Well, I've got a very complicated social media. It's just my first and last name, Jemele Hill. So you can see me on Instagram, on Twitter, all of that. And I guess over the next couple of weeks, if anybody listening or watching is a fan of the reality show Married at First Sight, I'm hosting the after show the next 2 weeks. So
I'll be watching.
Yeah, my first episode premiered last night, and then I have the next 2. So If you like some messy reality shows, which I do,
awesome.
this is one of my
gosh.
favorites, then you can check me out on that.
Oh, that's good stuff. Oh my goodness. Jemele, thank you so much for being here. When I say I appreciate, my mom is over there taking notes, y'all. My mom is still in the studio and she is taking all kind of notes. I don't even know what she wrote, but she wrote some stuff.
I got the front and the back.
back. She wrote
Look at that.
copious
Double-sided.
notes.
She's like, okay. I feel like I'm about to take an exam after
when
this.
the student is ready, the teacher appears. Right? So we thank you for being our teacher today. We appreciate you. Great girlfriends, thank you for listening in. Have a happy Wednesday. Peace.
Hi, great girlfriends. It's me, Dylan, with the Motivational Minute. So the quote for today is never apologize for being a powerful woman, and it is by someone who is unknown. But it tells you that, like, whenever you're making a choice or making a decision, you don't have to apologize for doing it. Just do it. And like another quote says, do what you have to do now and ask for forgiveness later. Like Harriet Tubman, what she did was she took slaves and brought them to their own freedom. And she never apologized for it. She was always confident about what she wanted to do, and she was always telling herself, like, you have this, you got this, and you can do this. That was a Motivational Minute. Have a great day.
All right, great girlfriends. Did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast and the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group at The Great Girlfriends. Follow us on Instagram at The Great Girlfriends and on Twitter at @the_greatGFS. I'm Sybil Amuti and I'm out. Peace.
Yay Networks.